Back here on the channel, one of my guys is with me, Greg Sylvander, covers the Heat. And the Heat had a very uneasy regular season. We're going to talk about that and preview what their playoff aspirations could or couldn't be. Eighth seed play-in. They're getting the Sixers. They're getting the Sixers Wednesday night. This will be out before that, so people will know what Greg has to say. But Greg, we saw what the Heat did last year, playoff run all the way to the finals. We did not think it was possible. Even during the Buck series, it didn't look like that was possible. Do they have another run in them to the finals, to the conference finals? Do they have another run in them based on what you've seen this season?
Based on what I've seen, no. Nothing in the data suggests that they do have another run. But that's what's weird about this damn team is that we know that we felt the same exact way about this group last year, and now here we are.
Worse, I
And
would argue.
worse. I mean, if you look at the records, the Heat, finished 10 games above 500, a season high 10 games above 500 by the end of the season. So, if anything, they probably. And I know that it was against Toronto, a team looking to lose, but at least they got a couple games in them where they could start to get into a rhythm. They feel themselves a little bit because it's going to be tough. I'm not going to lie. I'm not loving Embiid's status. Obviously, is up in the air to some degree, but I expect him to play.
Same.
They've played as good as the Celtics, basically by winning percentage when Embiid's been on the court. I think they're 31-8 this year when Embiid plays. Or something like that. So that's pretty damn good. And Maxey is a tough matchup. I expect to see a ton of zone. Do they have another run in them? I would be lying if I said that this is lining up and it looks like it's about to be another run. I think that this team will ultimately come up short this year. I hate that I'm saying that out loud, but that's where I'm at.
The thing that's interesting to me is I see a path to the Eastern Conference Finals potentially if they beat Philadelphia Wednesday. Because I think if they beat Philadelphia Wednesday, okay, they get the Knicks. I think that's a tough series regardless. To me, that's a 50-50, maybe even 55-45 Knicks series. I think the Knicks are going to be favorites. They should be favorites. Julius Randle's not going to be there, but the Heat actually play him very well, as is Bam Adebayo. But that's going to be a tough series that I think the Heat can win. I think the Knicks can win, as I said, also. But then beyond that, let's say the Heat win for the purposes of events in this conversation. You get the winner of Bucks Pacers. We don't know the status of Giannis Antetokounmpo. And with the Pacers, people are going to be betting on them because the Bucks are not starting the series with Giannis Antetokounmpo. We don't know how long he's going to be out. So you would think that the Heat could win. They could beat the Knicks. They could beat either of those teams, depending on Giannis' status. And they've beat Giannis before. And then beyond that, it's like Eastern Conference Finals, whatever. But I kind of feel like they're going to lose this game and then get the Celtics in the first round.
That's where I'm at too. And it kind of worked out today where it's the worst scenario. They got the 2 wins. They held up their end of the bargain, but they lost so many up front that they didn't control their own path at the very end. And when you don't control your own destiny, other teams took care of stuff. And here we are, 8th seed. I kind of feel like it's inevitable that Boston is the likely matchup here. I hate to say that. This will get clipped and I'll be called the dude who has no guts. But I just don't see this as a great matchup heading up on Wednesday.
So they beat Boston 2 times in the last 3 times they faced each other in the Jimmy Butler era. The time that they did not was in 2022. So there's a rivalry there. I think that's the best rivalry in the NBA right now, personally. So we'll see what happens there. In terms of being untouchable, is there anybody, because we were saying last year as they were, losing in the play-in, like, are they going to trade Bam? They're going to have a lottery pick now. Are they going to go shopping with that? Or are they just going to go the other way or surround Jimmy with different guys? Going into it, I feel like the vibe is slightly different, but this feels like another pivotal summer for them where they're going to have to make moves regardless of what happens. So are there Heat players that are untouchable that could be on the move? Like, who does this playoff run sort of impact the most in their future?
The playoffs impact Tyler Hero the most. There's no doubt. I mean, he was asked today what he's looking forward to most about the playoffs. And he said, getting through it healthy. Like, he didn't even mention team success. He went straight to getting through it healthy. So you see where his head is at. And I get that because he understands his status on the team likely has a lot to do with this run. Untouchables, Bam Adebayo is not going anywhere. He is untouchable. Jimmy Butler is, for all intents and purposes, untouchable.
There was a slight pause there.
Correct. And so I'm going to preface it by saying, if there ever was a scenario where they needed to make a really drastic move, or let's say extension talks break down, something weird were to happen, if you had to make the choice, Jimmy or Bam, I think that they would keep Bam around and they would shop Jimmy before they would ever shop Bam. That's just my opinion based off the information that I hear, and also just my gut level sense of what's going on around there, that they would probably lean Bam. So that's the untouchable player on this roster.
But to be clear, you don't think either of them are going anywhere, more than
I don't.
likely,
I don't.
regardless of what happens. But
No,
everyone else potentially, well, by everyone else, I think that would probably more than likely exclude Jaime Jaquez, potentially Nikola Jovic. But I
correct.
mean, what about the
You're
young
right.
players? Like, is there?
No. I think it's safe to expect Jaquez back. It's safe to expect Nico Jovic back. And beyond that, there's guys with player options you can expect back, but that's kind of dipping your toe into free agency versus this trade conversation. But then other than that, it's Bam and Jimmy. And truthfully, I think Terry Rozier will likely back. But
I
if you're
agree.
talking about shaking things up, sometimes you need a big contract in a deal. So that's why I just can't say he's 100% going to be back. But I think he's a player that they do look to carry forward with.
Okay, I'm going to give you their fourth quarter numbers, which is something that I've been
Oh
tracking this
no.
season in our conversation. So they finished the season, by my count, 36, 43, and 3 in fourth quarters this season, minus 5.5 fourth quarter net rating, second worst in the league. The Suns were like doubly worse. They were like
Yeah.
11 or so, and minus
And they were
203 point
so bad.
differential. Yeah, awful. The Heat minus 95 point differential in fourth quarters this year. However, it actually wasn't that bad down the stretch. The last 32 games of the season, 18, 11, and 3 in fourth quarters, plus 31. I think they slipped back in the negative in their last 20 games or so, but still positive after that initial stretch in the losing streak rather, and things of that nature. So I say all that to say, does that concern you? Does the fourth quarter play concern you, or do you feel like that's something that they were able to improve upon enough down the stretch of the season?
I think you chronicled on Off the Floor are that basically after that Clipper game, things turned around back February 4th, I think was the date that you time stamped it.
Mhm.
And that was a good point to look forward to, because I feel a lot better than I did at that moment. That's for sure. But I don't feel great about this offense in general, no matter what time and space that it's playing in. I've yet to feel confident in the offense, but particularly in the fourth quarter, they're going to learn a lot about themselves. They're going to learn, does Jimmy, Tyler, and Bam work late in games? Who do you go to? This is going to be that type of period where you're going to actually get a temperature check, because they all project to be out there on the floor healthy for once in a run. So it's interesting that it comes under these circumstances where they feel maybe a little further away from a path than usual, when they're maybe going to be as healthy at the top of the roster as they've been for one of these runs.
Where are we at on health with especially Terry Rozier and Duncan Robinson, two guys who were starting down the stretch and two guys that I thought would enter the playoffs as the starters along with Jimmy Bam and Niko Jovic?
Duncan, I was weary that he wasn't going to play again this season, and it looks like he might get out there on Wednesday. Terry, I thought he was trending in the right direction, but Ethan was basically in the hallways of the arena today, and this is on Sunday, April 14th, and he heard Terry could be out a little while longer. So I don't know if that neck is stiffening up to the degree where they just don't want to chance it or what. But I would expect maybe Duncan, no Terry, and Kevin Love now is a question mark as well, because he did get an arm injury in the game. He says it was a stinger of sorts. So hopefully he'll be okay. But I don't know if by Wednesday he'll be ready to go. So, and he could be a key player that they need in a matchup against Joel Embiid, although I project them to play a ton of zone in that matchup.
I would agree with that. It's a little worrisome, but we'll see what happens on the injury front. Last thing here before we get you out of here, predictions. Just how's this playoff run going to go? We were all wrong last year, but this year maybe Jimmy has the playoff Jimmy stuff. I joke that if they have playoff Jimmy, they'll win Wednesday against the Sixers and get the Knicks series, and if they have jump past Jimmy, which is infuriating to watch, then they'll lose that game on Wednesday, and then they'll play the Celtics. So
I think
ultimately,
that's fair.
where do you think this season is going to end? Like how far is this team going to go or not go?
Oh man, you putting me on the spot here. I just want to acknowledge that there's a path, and here it is. The path is Jimmy Butler doing Jimmy Butler things so that you get New York and you stay out of Boston's bracket. But ultimately, I think we're probably heading for a series against Boston. And if it's hard fought, you'll have to feel as good as that could possibly be. But I don't see the long run in them this year. I think probably a first round out is where we're heading. And that is me being as objective as I can because the biased fan inside of me wants to come up with a reason why I've seen different. But watching this team all year, I don't think I can say with any degree of certainty that they're going to beat Boston in the first round. Like that's just a tough ask.
I think Jimmy Butler, if he's playoff Jimmy, anything is possible. And if he's not, then anything is possible.
We'll know
That's how I would
Wednesday.
summarize that. Yep. We'll know Wednesday. And maybe even Friday if it goes that far. That's Greg Sylvander. Subscribe to Five on the Floor and Off the Floor on Discord, where Five on the Floor is informing Heat fans and others just everything going on with that organization. And you're going to want to be subscribed during the playoffs. Thank you, Greg. We're going to get out of here. And we have more coming soon on the channel.